It is time for the matchup we've all been waiting for between two of our top teams, G2 Esports and Team Vitality. These giants went undefeated in week 1 and fans have been waiting all week to watch them clash on our stage. Both teams made big roster changes in the offseason and there was a lot of excitement around what new players would bring. Bo making his debut, Mickey returning to G2 and Hansama back in the LEC, and these teams have delivered so far. Stories have traveled across the league about G2's scrim dominance, and despite the fear of language barriers, Vitality have looked like the well-oiled machine so far. Both teams stand with 1 loss and 4 wins, and based on what we've seen so far, they are title contenders. But only one of them can remain in the first place, as we gear up for an epic battle here in LEC Week 2. And who knows, maybe we're watching a preview of the Winter Split finals, G2 versus Vitality.
G2 is an interesting roster. I think that they're going to be tough opponents because of their individual skill. I think they're going to do well as a team as well.
Well, Bo going in. He flash predicts the dash from Kazi. Niski flashes forward again, but this one has about as much use as the last. Bo and Perks are dominating.
Right now, I just joined the LEC, which was like a dream for me as well, and I just want to win the LEC. I want to lift the trophy, and I want to travel and go to MSI and go to Worlds.
That's a great knockback and stun. All of a sudden, the damage is there, but Jack's pressure is so low, he cannot get into the fight. Ruby wasn't able to join either. Teleports on cooldown, it may have been interrupted. That's a flash away from Jack. Yike turns his attention once more, and Broken Blade brings the hammer down.
The stage has been set and the hype is real. We're just minutes away from the anticipated battle between G2 and Vitality. We're gonna look at why these teams are so terrifying to face, their strengths, and how their different lane matchup will go now that they finally face off in the Winter Split. So without further ado, Yamato, what is so fearful about G2 at the moment?
Honestly, I think the easiest place to start is just where the Draven axes are swinging. I think the bottom side, Hansam and Mickey, in terms of what they've shown, in terms of play, the champion depth, and how their pressure connects to the rest of the game is just such a scary factor because what they play makes them such an outlier in the league.
It's also just the fact that I feel like whenever we do see them play towards the bot side, they get a lot of the resources, but also individually against the other bot laners, they are the one that takes charge. And already from the first wave, I think just going off with Hansama and Mickey, there's a big outlier in terms of who they're facing up against. Because Neon and Kaiser was an anticipated bot lane coming into this split. Neon had a lot of hype after what he achieved on Misfits, and I think he had a lot of expectations. But so far, I feel like he hasn't really been able to meet them fully just yet.
I think the main thing, right, with the contrast between these bot lanes is that I feel like Hansam and Mickey are a lot more complete. We've seen the dives, they are so precise and they're doing so well in those moments. But if you look at the opposite side, I feel like Neon and Kaiser are kind of role players. Neon is the type of player that can play a lot of different champions and always bust out damage later on in the games. This is what we've seen. And Kaiser is the type of player that really likes to connect with his jungler. The strongest Kaiser I've seen was the one that was winning championships together with Elioya when they were always connecting. And now in this current meta, you're kind of forced to face the fact that you need to be strong in the lane phase, and that's where I feel like Vitality's bot lane has been disappointing. The main game that stands out to me is just them playing Caitlyn Lux into Astralis and level 1 already throwing the lane completely. And that is where that precision is so important in terms of what you get out of your lane matchups.
100%. I mean, they're not the only bot lane we've seen kind of struggle to adapt to how the bot lane meta has shaped up. But either way, they are on a top team and we have also seen stellar things from them. But when we are talking about the most stellar things from Vitality in general, I feel like we're not looking at the bot side. I feel like we have to look up towards the top 100%. Side of the map, and we're looking at Bo and Photon really, because those have been the outliers. And I'm looking at Bo specifically as well, because I'm not looking to him to play champions like Maokai and Photon to play the likes of Ornn. I'm looking to see them take charge on the Kasantes, the Jax, or the Graves as well, as we've seen from Bo too.
And no, for sure. I think that in terms of, the deeper games that Vitality has gone through, I just remember moments where Photon was popping off with Jax. You had, of course, Bo popping up with Graves. I remember also Photon on his Gnar, just kind of solving later deep game states in terms of how they can kind of, bank on that later on in the game. And that was the main contrast for me when it comes to Vitality's approach coming into this weekend. I think almost, for me, it felt like almost there was a hint of kind of underestimating some of the opponents that were lower in the standings. Of course, I am kind of surprised with the performance of SK as an example.
Yes.
But going with that approach, the safe approach of going scaling and then being able to win later on in the game is something that definitely is not going to work against the G2 that just puts the knife to your throat already from level 1.
Yeah, and I think even more so because we've already heard multiple players talk about this, but it is the fact that G2 has the strongest laners in the league. And if you just fight them from a pure laning phase perspective, especially in bot and mid and even topside as well, it just comes to a point where you're going to fall behind.
For sure.
The only time we've seen G2 struggle was when all lanes was pushed on the tower due to kind of draft disadvantage. But I feel like if you come into a game where they get even draft advantage, they get to play the lane that you want, you need something to disrupt these laners. You can't just play traditional league. You need to find mistakes that you can punish. And I feel like some of that has to come from Bo as well.
For sure. I think in terms of, that disruptive nature, trying to disrupt that plan of setting up dives, it usually comes from very unorthodox ganks. On this replay, we saw this moment where Mad Lions had this very nice plan to invade, of course, the blue side jungle. They pushed out Bo, and they felt this safety around mid lane that Bo is going to be pushed out in base, and then he finds this very, very clever gank angle on Niski. And then there was also that moment, of course, the moment on the level 2 against Graves. I think that's coming up after this replay. Just finding these moments that are going to kind of break the plan of the opposition is so important. And this example is just the one that I was talking about.
Exactly, because here you're in a lane where this could be the G2 lane, right? Could be Hans and Mickey who's pushing up, they're winning the 1v1, and all of a sudden, here's the disruption we're talking about. Here is what changed what the fundamental lane would go like, and that's that outlier you throw in there with Bo. I think there's no doubt in my mind that both these junglers are two of the most talked about junglers we have. Yike has been incredible when he's been performing, but it can't be stated that it is easier to play, and not to take any credit away from Yike because he has been having an amazing debut, but it is easier to play when you have the best laners as well. It is easier when you play for the leeway where, despite Bo playing the Graves, I feel like he's been more, sometimes even facilitating, and that's been like honestly what's so incredible about watching him play too.
For sure. I think the main thing as well, right, with what Bo has done is that now everyone knows. So in terms of preparation, in terms of wards that you can place and working around this is so important. And I look at G2's playstyle in terms of how they really ram their fist down your throat down bottom side. Everyone knows this is coming, but the level of precision and how well they move around the timings of their bottom dives is something that I've seen, from the best teams globally. The teams that play the best League of Legends right now are the ones that really push hard in the early game. We have our T1s, we have our D+, we're waiting for the LPL to start, but G2 is doing that same approach. Really hard in the early game, pressuring through bottom side, and really, just snowballing the game out of complete control.
Yeah, and even then, like when we've seen Vitality try to be the kind of team-fighting team, I think they've had greater team fights when they didn't necessarily draft a team fight composition. Like when they've been on Champion where it's not always been about the high communication we see from Vitality. It's been about the raw skill that comes through this simple communication, and that's the beauty of it as well. I remember specifically again, this team fight they had against Fnatic, where they had to fight their way back. And it's on champions like Jax, it's on champions like the Graves as well, where it looks tired in the beginning, but this is where the individual raw skills comes across as well.
Yeah, the trickiest thing for Vitality, of course, is how are they going to put themselves in positions where they can mechanically challenge the opposition? Because I think that's where Photon and Bo are so strong. This sequence is just gorgeous, obviously off of the back of a lot of Fnatic mistakes, but being able to capitalize on that, of course, requires a very keen eye on what's going on in the fighting sequences.
And I think just in general, despite our conversations today, right now we do feel that G2 is coming in as the favorites today, just due to the fact, as we said, strong laners, when they win hard and they win fast. So there is this pressure on Vitality to try and get back into the game by finding these small moments and the key points that you're talking about as well. And then for contractual reasons, we are the LEC. We have to say that Perks is of course playing up against Caps. But without further ado, Minimato is going to join the analyst desk and continue the topic.
Caps against Perks is just such a legendary matchup.
I've never seen it before.
It always delivers, and I was just watching them backstage, and they had like a G2 2019 reunion. Wonder was there, the whole team was there. It's so wholesome to see that these players kept like a link, and even though they went different directions, different team, that they stayed in touch. And of course, this is also why this matchup is so important, I think.
100%. Even before the matchup started, I saw they were taking photos out backstage, and it was not just the old guys; it was the old 2019 team that was all riling up together, still keeping the vibe going. They always talk to each other whenever we see them come down the hallway, and it's good vibes, and it's not no hate in between them. It's just great sportsmanship, and I love to see it continue because individually a lot of them are thriving still, and especially Perks now going up against his former team.
And you don't often see players keeping touch like this and staying in contact. I feel, Yamat. I mean, you've been coaching many teams. It's the first time I see such a strong link within players.
No, for sure. I think with how fast everything goes in esports, the days kind of melt together and you're kind of isolated within your team, and it's easy to forget what's going on around you. And those bonds and those relationships that you build by going through tough times and conquering them, are so important because they share history. They've grown together as individuals, as a group as well, and they are who they are because of the experiences that they've shared together.
Exactly.
And I'm so happy that each single individual player is still, playing at a very, very high level. And that they can, have banter with each other in the games that we see.
They share a lot
of cringe and all that jazz.
And you see it usually in chats in game, especially Wonder, talking in all chat and talking to his old teammates. Hopefully we will get into the game as fast as we can, but league officials are changing players' hardware at the moment. Should be really fast, but there's a lot of stuff to say about this game nonetheless, especially when you look at the week G2 had. It feels like either they giga stomp everyone or they get smashed the other way, but there's no in between with this team.
I feel like pride was the prejudice of both these teams as well coming into it. I think yesterday for Vitality, the Tristana blind pick felt very random and kind of halted them as well. And I think you saw that in the mid to late game as well with the team fighting when enemies had Syndra to play around with. So a little bit of disrespect, but nonetheless, as the G2 management was saying, hey, they win 80% of their scrims, and with 9 games coming through here, you're bound to drop one of the games. And not to take any credit away from SK either. They've of course been playing amazing, but none of our teams are perfect. And I think that's just the point that I'm trying to make. We will see stumbles. And I think it's greater to see the stumbles, especially in the regular season, before you go into the best of 3 stage 2. So yeah, I'm super excited to see them.
Something that I wanted to highlight as well was just in terms of the format and preparing for best of ones against opposition. I feel like G2 is kind of the southpaw of the league of fighters that fight with right hand. If I look at Vitality in terms of what they've played, they've had that Graves game for Bo, but mostly he's been playing very standard champions. He played the Vi, he played the Maokai, the Sejuani, and generally speaking, Vitality are kind of keeping a frame that is kind of expected. And if you think about G2, on the other hand, preparing against them is so awkward.
It is.
They might decide to drop a Zac on your forehead. They have the Draven preparation into a lot of the champions, but at the same time play a lot of the meta stuff too. In terms of preparation, I'm kind of hoping that Vitality have cooked up something very special for this match, because I'm assuming these teams have also scrimmed against each other.
Talking about weird picks, I know that Yike tweeted earlier, should I play Kha'Zix or should I play Kiana? I mean, I think the answer is obvious as to which champion I want to see on the Rift today. But is it likely that we see any of these 2 champions, GB?
I mean, I think no. I think it's just baiting. We had a great debate earlier, and I think this would for sure be a bait coming through from Yike with his statement too. But if you haven't watched Yike, of course, now you're super hyped about him. But back in the ERLs, he was very known for bringing out pocket picks. And one of his pocket picks was the Kha'Zix. And it was one of the reasons I was so excited initially to see him on a team like G2, because they are the team that allows you to play the Zac. They are the team that allows you to experiment. And I would love to see a Kha'Zix come out today, although I don't think we will.
And talking a bit more about Yike, you were mentioning ERL. I was lucky to see him perform within LDLC OL last year, and he was already a shiny player, but he was more on the quiet side. And I was lucky enough to spend some time with G2 and see how they train together. And the role that he's taken on this team, how vocal he is, and how he's leading the whole team, basically, whether it's in reviews or in game, basically. I'm amazed to see such a young player and a rookie taking on such a big role, especially when you think about G2 being such a big organization?
No, for sure. I think also, like, my impression first is like if you look at this team, you have the veteranship of Caps and Mickey, but looking at a lot of their voice comms, Mickey and Caps are just vibing, they're performing mechanically, and a lot of the voices are covered by the other players on the team. And I think that's a positive thing. I think in a lot of cases you have players saying way too much, and if what's needs to be said has been said, you can just take a step back and trust in your teammates, which is a very strong asset so early in the season.
And it's such a mismatch, or not mismatch, but contrast rather to what Vitality is at the moment, right? Because it's the team with very simple conversation. We've heard Neon talk about it. We heard the others talking about it as well. Like, we have communications, we're talking, but it's at a very basic level. And it's so incredible that a team like Vitality is performing to the extent that they currently is, when that's the baseline that you currently have, that you're also fighting with. So I think big contrast in terms of how it works behind the scenes too, but still nonetheless so impressive by Vitality.
And it makes you wonder how different of a beast Vitality is going to be in the later stages of the year when communication becomes something more stable maybe for the team.
No, for sure. I think communication is such an interesting topic because, like, in my experience, there's some teams that would play better if they didn't communicate.
What does that mean?
Let me explore this conversation.
Solo queue, okay.
Sometimes you're in situations where you overdo it, and sometimes it causes overcomplications, when in reality what needs to be said is, I'm basing, I need to base on this gold, I want to play on this wave. And sometimes in an attempt to enforce your ideas and to really connect with your teammates, sometimes you can forget the basics that you know in playing the game. And I think sometimes we see those matches that look very rough on both sides, when you have teams kind of being all over the place, they're engaging here and there. And that could be like a situation where there's too much communication, and you can have a situation where these players in solo queue would perform so much better. And all things considered, that it feels so strange to me that we've only been in 2 weeks of the LEC.
Yeah.
It feels like it's been a lot longer, especially with some of the level of play we've seen so far, especially, out of the gate. Usually we have this conversation about, these late game compositions, people are playing it simple and safe, and these drawn out games. But I feel like teams are really working in a way, especially Vitality and G2, in a way to establish an identity that will last, instead of just finding cheap wins here and there.
Exactly, because like, how long can you call it a honeymoon as well? Because that is a factor in the beginning as well, but there's just something about it where you feel like there is a certain trust that this will continue, especially when you know what, for example, the issues are with Vitality, which is something that will only improve when you build upon it over time, the communication, right? And for G2 as well, which is like, this is barely G2. Caps was the only one together with BB who stayed on that team, coming in with the new rosters as well. And we've seen new rosters in our league when they bring in new personalities. And we've seen how some of them don't work. But G2 is the kind of team, they're already vibing, all right? And when this is what you see from the get-go, you can only think towards the end of the year that, you know what, it's going to be a pleasure.
I mean, we talked about this, I think it was, and ironically, during the first pre-show this week, this may be the MSI finals. In a way, if you're lucky, if you performs well.
SKBDS, yeah.
No, this one.
Oh, this one. Yeah, sure. These guys are pretty good too, I guess.
But focusing on these two teams, I think, if I'm not mistaken, whoever wins here would be the first team to lock in group stage. And I want to take a look at the standings here real quick, because that's that's a discussion we had with players yesterday on stage. Do you think the standings reflects what we had in mind and what we would expect coming into this season?
No.
Two teams in the middle, of course.
Just the two teams or all of the standings? Because I feel like if somebody handed me these standings going into, finishing our second week now, I would have been like, you're not by your full mind here. Something is definitely not right. I was at a lack of words for PG words to say in terms of that one. But yeah, definitely a messy standing. And even if one of these teams losing now, look at how many teams are going to be sharing the second place. We have so many teams who's going to be sitting at a 4-2.
No, it's crazy to me, because before the season we had ideas of some of these teams. After week 1, we had that same idea for a lot of these teams. And then all of a sudden we have 3-0 sweeps, and it is going to be such a crazy situation later, because the seeding is going to matter so much when the best of 3 scenarios begin to kick in. We might have groups where what we considered contenders at the beginning of the season be in the same group and kick each other out so early in the tournament, which just makes this format so exciting, because stakes stakes and stakes everywhere.
And it's going to be
a good restaurant.
really interesting coming into next week. Just some info about the game. League officials are working on adjusting player setting on stage. We will keep you updated on the situation. But coming back on this discussion, as we said, we had format changes, players having to adapt onto a new schedule, one scrim day less per week. And I feel like they've adjusted rather well when you think of most of them. And Yamato, you were mentioning the level of play within the LEC. We just looked at the standings right now. How high is the level in Europe right now, would you say?
I think it's kind of hard to tell because I think the main point of comparison, of course, would then be the LCK. I think that T1 and Damwon just show a level that everyone wants to reach. I don't think we have teams that are just there yet because I think in terms of how the macro is and in terms of how focused everything is around the dragon fights and the Nash setup and more oriented towards the macro identity of the game rather than some slip-ups in lane, solo kills. Like we have so much volatility still here in Europe that hopefully is going to be stabilized as teams are going to be playing better and better and they get more accustomed to being on stage again.
I say potential.
But I also think, like,
maybe.
if the meta stays like it currently does, right? Like, yes, we do have the Bruisers top laners and whatever that top lane talk. Let's not look at the negatives and just look at the positives, right? EU has always been known for the bot laners as well, right? We always talk about EU mids, but fact of reality is that we've always had damn good AD carries. It's been one of the most contested roles here in the LEC, and I think that if it continues to be the kind of bot lane way we want to play, then like Hans and Mickey make a really good shout for someone who would be able to try and compete. I'm not saying that they're going to go over there, they're going to beat Guma and Kyria, but I'm saying that it's a matchup that, honestly, watching it, I'd be super excited for. I am not going in a situation where I'm like, this is not going to go well for us at all. Let me just full out blown the copium and see if I can find any points that I think would make sense. No, I genuinely feel like this would be a great matchup, and I'd love to see it because even Vitality now with their tops of the map, I would love to see what they do as well. I would love to see what Bo does on an international stage.
I don't want to lose hope after just 2 weeks of competition anyway, so we'll keep the hopes here for now. We have an interview ready backstage with Trouble and Romain. I don't know what's going to happen there, Trouble. Good luck with him.
Thank you so much, Lo, and thank you so much for joining. Romain?
Exactly.
Is that with the correct R?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining me so we can entertain people as you do very well. And back at entertaining, the Baron Pit. There's a lot at stake for this game. I had 6 kills on perks, and then you take over the desk?
Yeah. So to be perfectly honest, I got a bit flamed by my coaching staff when I got back home because they told me 6 kills, it's a lot and stuff. But I have to admit, yesterday we played really well. We got those 6 kills on Jankos. I'm expecting us to play another banger today versus Vitality. Are we going to be able to kill perks 6 times? I don't know. Let's see about it. I hope the Barons are going to be merciful if we still win, but do not kill him 6 times, because I believe from a content and entertainment perspective, it will be amazing to get all the boys on the analyst desk.
You know, you can always negotiate. That's what the Baron Pit is about.
Down.
It's counter offer on counter offer. So if you do end up winning, maybe you can still take over desk. And talking on winning and going a little bit more serious, I think the most anticipated match today is Yike versus Bo.
For sure.
What is this rookie bringing to G2? And everyone is so hyped about him.
A lot. I've compared him a few times already to Spider-Man joining the Avengers.
Spider-Man, okay.
You know, so we have those 4 veterans, really experienced with a lot of achievements and everything. And you have the little kid coming in the middle with big eyes, like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by the big guys.
He did save his girlfriend a couple of times. No spoilers.
Yeah, that happened for sure. But yeah, he totally belonged there. He's an extremely great human. A lot of fun to work with, really skilled in games, plays a lot of things. So yeah, I think today is going to be a banger.
All right, thank you very much, Roman, for your input. And we're going to spiderweb our way to the desk because we're ready for the game.
And we are here, ready for the game. Cadril has opted to start it now. If there are any more delays at Cadril, start the game on Twitter.
Thanks, buddy. But yeah, we're about ready. I see all the players in the lobby, a lot of pre-game banter, bit of trolling from either side.
I mean, it's the battle to see who's second best in the league, isn't it?
After SK.
After SK, because I mean, SK beat both these teams this week.
This weekend,
so,
yeah. Literally, both these teams were slated to go 5-0 to give us that epic clash. for the 6-0 run, but both of them lost to SK. But here we are, we have the draft ready. Game 4, G2 Esports and Team Vitality sitting at the top of the LEC right now. Let's see what they have prepared for us. Already, the Graves being taken away. Both Bo and Yike known for this champion. The Draven respect ban being thrown towards Hans Summer.
Yeah, no real surprises there. Draven for Hans Summer has just been such a game changer for G2 so far. Graves and Sivir taken away. I agree with the desk that bot lane is definitely going to be a key focus for Vitality. They need to try and find a way to shore up Neon and Kaiser versus the pressure that Hans Summer and Mickey have been putting down. And by banning out the Callisto and maybe even something like the Heimerdinger, that will help them just a little bit. G2, though, with their final ban, will remove Jax from the pool. And now Vitality. Is it Yuumi? Is it Heimer? Is it Ashe?
Okay,
is it
so
Caitlyn?
I mean, Varus is up. That would be my expectation in terms of the direction for G2. But my concern is Maokai and Sejuani are up.
And you just don't like them as
I don't want to see
champions.
these two junglers specifically on those champions because they're naturally so aggressive. They're about playing in your face, utilizing their lane
First pick
bio
Yuumi.
to steal away everything.
Oh, it's Rise.
They're going to go for Caps' Rise. At least we expect it to be Caps' Rise. Back in the day, very well known for this champion. I mean, both Perks and Caps, very well known for this champion. Meanwhile, the Varus Ashe going to come out from the bot lane of Vitality. Somewhat expected. G2 must have been prepared for this. Question is, I don't expect them to go for the Yuumi. Of course, the Lucian is still up. We already talked about it earlier. A lot of AD carries still is a possibility. Caitlyn could be a potential for Hansai. Cheeky hover of the Kiana there. Those that have been following him on social media, Yike has been teasing, bringing this one out.
It looks like it's going to be Lucian Nami down towards the bottom side for G2. Very heavy pressure bot lane. Really spikes after Lucian can get 1 or 2 items. Not as powerful as it used to be in the early game because the electrocute Nami changes mean you can't get that proc off as often, but still a lane dominant lane if you know how to play it properly.
Very mobile, especially into a bot lane that doesn't have much mobility. This is where we now see if Vitality will go for mid or jungle. My expectation is jungle. Nice. We're going to see Bo on something that has a lot of agency. Love watching Bo's Vi. We got to see a bit of a masterclass between him and Perks. Their Azir Vi combo against Mad Lions. It was flawless. Able to shut down that early game that Mad tried to set up, and they were able to convert it into a very important win. And we'll get to see Bo back on the champion. So now, mid lane ban should come through from G2. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Syndra taken off the pool. For Vitality, they can look to limit the jungle pool now. Viego going to be removed away from Yike. The problem is, we know that Yike is more than happy to play a bunch of different stuff. So what direction will they go? Will they consider removing the Bel'Veth? Will they instead consider removing something like the Kindred? Or will they even choose to remove something like the Maokai? Are they scared about that big utility champion? So far, we haven't seen Yike on something like that. But that doesn't... I very much expect him to still be able to play it.
I actually think this is the sort of game where Yike is likely to go towards something a bit more utility, a bit more gank-orientated, not pure farming like the Graves or the Viego, because you don't have as much push in this bot lane as they have had in previous games. Ashe Varus can match the push that comes out of Lucian Nami. Yes, they can be harassed, and if they lose trades, obviously then the pressure swings in favor of G2, but generally Ashe and Varus should be able to hold that Lucian Nami at bay, which means that G2 then can't have their jungler invading all the time because you don't have the bot lane to back you up as quickly. There is the Maokai ban by Vitality. Syndra and Azir removed by G2, so Perks will have to fall away from the Rise Azir matchup that we've seen a couple of times. Cassio is something we do sometimes see into the Rise, an old school counter. We'll see where Vitality decide to go.
Perks will be forced to bring something different out this time around. So far,
he could still go Trist.
Well,
Let's play that one.
But I'd be very surprised if you went Trist. You did mention the Cassio earlier, and he's going to lock that one in. Good prediction there.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll take that one. That one felt okay.
You can have that one. It's an old school counter to Rise, and mainly because of the range. Rise doesn't have the longest range. Cassio's Q can basically just bully out the Rise, especially in early laning phase, and often phase rush was the go-to in this matchup, and you could basically just chase down the Rise. Udyr being hovered right now, and it will be locked in.
Okay.
Okay, I believe this is our first Udyr of the LEC, this split.
I'll find out.
And now I need to remember what this champion does. He has been changed since the last time we saw him in the LEC.
It's all kind of the same.
No, I know.
Yeah, he has a stun.
I was kidding, Medic.
Sometimes, Betty, you're not kidding. Also, we can just pretend this is for the audience. You know, if you guys can't remember what Udyr does, has a stun, has a big slowing field, he mauls at you with his claws.
still a lot.
And
of
it's a turtle stance, yeah.
It's the empowerment from his passive that really is the big change from old Udyr. But regardless, we can talk more about that when we get into the game. K'Sante going to be rounded out for Broken Blade with Photon locking in the Gwen. So a bit of a skill matchup towards the top side. We haven't really gotten to see this matchup a huge amount. My expectations are that K'Sante can still bully out the Gwen in the early laning phase, but I imagine that the Gwen will have better scaling into the later game, and I feel like that's what this matchup is very much about. A lot more scaling on the side of Vitality. Cassio, Gwen, incredibly powerful late game components that are very strong team fighters. Can also match what G2 have drafted to send to the side lane. Meanwhile, G2 have a lot of early game dominance. The roams from Caps, the aggression that they can set up with the bot lane, the speed that Yike's going to have on this Udyr means that a lot of potential for counter jungling, a lot of getting in the face of Bo, and basically making his life as difficult as possible.
Okay, we've got a really quick minute before we get into the game. No Udyrs in major regions so far in 2023.
Oh.
Who do you think was the last person to play Udyr on the LEC stage?
Was it Jankos?
It was Jankos for G2 in 2021. They won 2-0-3 for Jankos. Actually might not have been on the stage if it was 2021. Could have been...
Was it really 2021?
2021, 2 years. This is in the LEC. I haven't looked across all major regions. But Yike bringing out something new in his 6th game here on the LEC stage. Vitality and G2 fighting for the top spot and a locked place in our group stage in a couple of weeks' time. 5 wins gets you there. And that is what G2 and Vitality are looking for. Both of them had a couple of stumbles this week. But let's see if they can bounce back today. We are into the game, guys. Trust me. We're going to get there in a second. It's coming. It's on its way.
There's no pause.
It'll be there in a moment. Here it comes. Be on tenterhooks. Edge of your seat. Here we go. The game! Let's go. So. Very, very, very. Do you want to know something I see a lot in my solo queue games?
Depression, sadness.
That's more of a sensation after the game. I didn't see it in the game.
I see.
Prowler's Claw Udyr.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to know something we shouldn't see in this game? Because it's technically just the worst build. Prowler's Claw Udyr. Demonic Embrace is the way to go on Udyr. And does so much more damage, gives you so much more control. I expect that's where Yike will go with this build. But
I mean, I'm just going to follow Yike. It's one of those things where when you have new champions that you don't get to see very often, I prefer not to predict and set expectations because pros tend to do their own thing. So let's just kind of follow along, see what he does. In fact, we can have a look. Hang on a second. Have a look at this. Kaiser and Neon already off to a very strong start. Double lady carries just beating down onto Hansama. Going to force him back immediately. The heal already come through for Mickey, but really great play from the Vitality bot lane. Going toe-to-toe with Hans and Mickey already.
how do you trade into double Halo Blades, double AD carry at level 1? If they ever get the drop on you and you don't get a stun, you don't CC them, they literally just walk at you and auto-attack you. And with Ashe having the slow there as well, this is why in draft I was saying this G2 bot lane does not have the pressure in the lane that they've had in previous matchups.
True.
Just walk at him!
Well.
Just walk at him! Menacingly!
The Hail of Blades doing so much work. The heal was already popped by Mickey. This is the type of situation you want to put G2's bot lane in. They've been such a dominant force in the LEC so far. Trying to limit their impact. It's definitely a great way to go. Remember though that if those flashes get burnt, a single gank from Yike can very quickly turn the tides in that bot lane. Very low in mobility for Neon and Kaiser. So a single blunder rather would mean a lot. I see both junglers pathing towards the bot side of the map. Caps with the early push, kind of expected. As Perks won't really have the mana to trade. So I'm keeping my eyes now. Junglers making their way, making their way downtown. Yeah. But with that ward in the tri-bush, it's going to be difficult for Yike to gank. But at the very least, he can look to alleviate some of the pressure. Pings are coming down from Perks, because he did drop that ward down into that bot brush rather than around the entrance to the river.
I think Yike being here is more just to save from a possible dive that Bo could do. He is working his way down here as well. Yeah, Yike just wants to cover it. You can see how quick Udyr's clear speed is, by the way. Yike has only just finished his blue buff, and Udyr's been waiting in this bush for like 8-10 seconds. Now we'll back away. Bo will get the bot side Scuttle Crab, and the bot lane for Vitality well in the lead, about 10 CS up. Doran's doing for Hans Summer as well, just trying for a little bit more damage from his spells rather than the auto attack damage, because you're not going to get too many light slingers off in this lane. Also, the extra mana makes it a little bit easier for you to farm from range. You need that Ardent Blaze, his W. That's just what he's going to try and do here. Already a plate, though, for the Vitality bot lane, and considering they were a point of weakness, or have been brought up as a point of weakness for Vitality, Neon and Kaiser off to a very strong start.
They certainly are. We can see, once again, both junglers doing what they often do, moving into the enemy's Raptors, getting a bit of information, and we can see that pretty much split across the board. Gonna have seen how this works. Yes, it does. Small circle. You can see these wards littered throughout the bot side. Meanwhile, on the top side of the map, you can see the same thing being done pretty much here and over here as well. So just that exchange, really good awareness from both junglers, just to get that extra bit of information as to what they're up to. And you can even see the ping coming down onto that top blue buff as more information. It's all about making sure that you keep track of what these junglers are doing. As we mentioned, both very aggressive junglers, they're both very active in the early game, and these are people that you want to make sure you know where they are and what they're up to.
They both can spend a lot of time around their teams as well. Yike currently coming out on top in terms of gold difference, counter jungle percentage, kills and assists at 14 minute marks. G2 have been a little bit more active, but right now Photon's being active in the top lane, trying to atomize Broken Blade, who does have to use the flash to escape. Ghost was used by Photon, so it is a trade of summoner spells.
Wave in a pretty good spot here for Photon, though. Broken Blade with the TP should be able to get back into lane, but not what I was expecting in the 1v1. Haven't been able to see much Gwen versus Cassante, but my expectations were in the early laning phase, Cassante would be able to get that push, and we can see that he kind of does have that push set up, but a bit of trading in the mid lane. Perks does miss that Q, means he's not going to win any more trades. Caps, though, burning that corrupting pot meant that he was actually able to come out ahead in that 1v1. Also got level 6 during the exchange because he was able to push through. Perks now with the level 6 makes him a lot more lethal. This is where Caps needs to be careful. Remember that when you use your skills on Ryze, you're always looking towards the Cassio, which means that it makes it much easier for her to be able to land that ultimate. Gag looking for a bit of a steal, given that the wave is starting to bounce back towards bot. Vitality's bot lane offering assistance.
Yeah, just moving back from the wave, know that they can help protect their jungler a little bit. Yike, one camp ahead, but now having lost the Gromp, will fall one camp behind. He can go and get his Krugs if he wants. Instead, looks towards the mid lane now. Perhaps actually might just start up the Dragon here. Knows that Bo is in this area because of how Neon and Kaiser moved. So we'll see if Vitality are wise to this. Bo on his way down. Got in without being spotted. Aquaprism going down, and Mickey's already fallen. Heal not enough to save them. Hans Summer getting chased away here, and Yike came across. Started up that Dragon, wasted a bit of time. Wasn't able to save his bot lane.
Very clever gank pathing once again from Bo. This is something that Yamato and Goldberg were talking about on the desk, and how he is so creative. He is very clever about dancing around vision, making sure that he doesn't get spotted so he can catch his opposition off guard. And to get a kill onto the G2 bot lane is definitely how you want to start this game. 1.5k is the gold lead right now for Vitality. They're putting on a clinic against G2. Very clearly well prepared coming into this matchup.
Have another look at this. Expectation was that Bo was around here. Yike pinged on the Dragon. Bo able just to sweep his way through. Blast cones in, knows there's no vision because of that sweeper.
Very straightforward, very simple. Mickey doesn't actually check the bush. I believe he didn't have a ward at the time to place in there. Then he ends up losing his life as a result. Very clean play. Not much really expended on the side of Vitality aside from the heal.
And sometimes you can do that as a support, just to fake ward. So Bo thinks there's a ward there because you stepped up towards the bush. I don't know if Mickey had already swapped over to the sweeper. I doubt it, as he had yet to back. Caps and Yike, though, looking for the top lane. Vision in the tri-bush means that they're unable to team up. Now, Perks can move across here. There's a level 6 for Bo. Hans Summer trading here. Kaiser has the barrier. Flash forward from Hans Summer. The light slinger not quite enough. Even with the summon air, he can't quite kill off Kaiser.
Wow, that was so close. Bo, though, making his way top.
No flash. Broken Blade trying to get away from Photon, who puts the needlework in. The path coming out from Broken Blade, but the flash forward, knocked back with the all-out. Broken Blade will fall first, and now Yike in a sticky situation. Has to retreat back to the safety of his tower.
But Bo finds another successful gank. Does commit the flash, knowing that Broken Blade didn't have it after the earlier trade against Photon. He finds another kill. Meanwhile, Kaiser gets away with a sliver of health. Well played across the board for Vitality. The gold lead isn't really going to change much, but in terms of the isolated 1v1 matchup, this is going to be big for Photon. Remember what we talked about, scaling is a really big thing for Vitality. You have a Cassio, you have a Gwen. These two champions in isolation, very powerful in the late game. You think about this Baron taking capabilities, I reckon the Cassio and Vi can take the Baron just as a duo.
Yep, 20 minutes in probably.
And then on top of that, you've got a lot of security and pick potential with Neon and Kaiser. You'll have that consistent poke that's coming out from both champions, with the lethality build coming out from Neon. And G2's whole goal and game plan with this draft is to look for early plays, try and snowball this bot lane, get Caps roaming around the map. And the one roam we saw from Caps up towards top side, they ended up pulling away from. They don't convert it into anything. Meanwhile, Bo is very quick to convert that into a kill. And now he finds himself with 2. His first item already completed, level 7 as well. Based on the experience, he's basically half a level up on Yike right now. And honestly, Bo just getting the better of his jungle counterpart.
His position has always been really good. Perks here. Looking for Caps. Bo coming in from the side as well. No cease and desist available for the VIT. Caps with the fancy feet once again able to sidestep. Yike charging his way in, but Bo can just walk away and Yike can't really step any further. Bot lane pushed in for G2 means that they could react and come across to join the team here. Kaiser forced down to half HP and the damage from Hansama and Mickey starting to stick in that bottom lane. Rift Scuttler will be secured by Yike, and G2 find a small bit of leverage in this game. Level 6 for Kaiser will make it a bit trickier for the G2 bot lane because Mickey is always a bit of a sitting duck or a sitting koi, I guess, in this situation. But the Dragon now started. Vitality are not going to fight over this one, or are they? As we see Perks moving across, Kaiser's hit 6, now they want to fight. The Dragon is secured, but Kaiser has that Enchanted Crystal Arrow, hits onto Yike, Neon on the chase as well, Chain of Corruption already being used, but the Realm Orb gets Yike out just in time. 150 HP or so for him to escape.
Wow, great ultimate there from Caps. I was expecting them to die. Perks, though, on the hunt for his former teammate.
Caps dodges the Petrifying Gaze.
He's grounded.
Miasma coming out as well, but the root countered there. Means that Caps will have to back before he can come in and catch this wave, or could just go through those potions. Still about half HP, but I guess the risk of Perks killing him under tower is much lessened by the fact there's no ultimate on that Cassio.
And I've always got to respect Caps and his confidence in those situations. I would have panicked.
Yeah, you would have
like,
flashed.
He tried to, well, he couldn't, that was the thing. It looked like he was going up to the wall. He wanted to flash over it, and then he realized that, hang on, I'm grounded. There's no way for me to get out of this. But no, calmly proc the phase rush, use that bonus movement speed to create space between him and Perks. And he was able to get away with his life. Perks, though, again, with a good play, good awareness. Vitality not able to convert much into a kill, but they will secure the Herald. Let's see where they choose to drop this. Perks looking for a roam bot. A lot of vision here, though, but right now,
no flashes.
Hansama, no flash on Mickey, as you
Chain
rightly
of
said.
Corruption dodged away by Hansama. Now Hansama doesn't have that dash to escape the waiting fangs of Perks. A Cobra lying in wait, the cleanse coming out, the heal used as well. They're just going to turn their eyes over to Mickey. Mickey sacrifices himself. Tasty sashimi for Vitality, but Mickey nowhere to go. Neon will secure the kill.
Okay, so they hand the kill over to Neon. Perks was definitely looking for it, but at the end of the day, job done. They've sent Bo to go and catch the midwave. Actually, both junglers are catching midwave right now as Caps made his way down. But Vitality, they've stayed at about a steady 1.7k gold lead. But if you look at the bottom of your screen, you can see advantages building across the board. Small ones, but in their entirety, resulting in pretty meaningful differences.
And I think the important thing for Vitality as well is, even if it's stable, it's not what's happened to every other team in the LEC apart from SK. They are not falling 4.6 thousand gold behind at 15 minutes on average. They're not losing the first Herald. They're not getting out killed in the early game. G2 yet to pick up a kill as we get up towards the 14-minute mark. Broken Blade trying to trade him on the top lane, but Photon just able to ghost his way away from this one. Broken Blade diving the tower, but not going to be able to do too much more. Arrow goes down, but as a Ram, you can immune that. Yike is able to escape.
Well played. Ultimate thrown onto Mickey, still no flash.
Perks coming in here as well, and Mickey just can't get anywhere. Perks gets on the board. 1-0-1 now for the Vitality mid laner, and Bo is just everywhere. Yike able to escape, but Mickey pays for it with his life. Now, Yike is on the way. Camp's coming in as well, but no Realm Warp means that they can't close this distance quickly enough, and Vitality once again walk out with an advantage.
Very well played from Vitality so far. The fact that Photon was able to escape in the top lane was also a big benefit. Both TPs ended up being used. Dragon spawned in about 2 minutes time, which will likely be the next big objective, but this Vitality squad is already being very accelerated. I'm impressed that Hansama has been able to actually find a CS lead. Credit to him. We did see that after the early few levels, when the sustain really starts to get through from Mickey on the Nami, and you basically just have a little bit more power in your base kit, that's when you can start actually being a lot more aggressive in that lane, because every time you trade, you're always going to be up, because you will get some of that HP back. So props to G2 for being able to call this one back.
So you can use arrow now because Yike no longer has the empowered, the second charge of his passive because he used it on his Arctic Assault there. Not called Arctic Assault, can't remember the name. The Icy one. He used the Icy one twice so he couldn't use the ram, but the smite comes out and the Rift charge will not find its mark. Yeah, Wingborne Storm.
It used to be a Phoenix, so I don't blame.
Yeah. It was a lot easier in those days.
Phoenix,
Bear
Turtle,
Stars, Tiger, Turtle, Phoenix. Now we have Iron Mantle, Wilding Claw, Blazing Stampede. I'm just going to call it by what they look like, okay? Cryo Phoenix,
it's cold.
Ram, Brewer, it's cold, Turtley Boy. I could call them Leonardo.
Why?
He's one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I thought you were making some DiCaprio reference, and I was like, I don't get it. What's the Titanic got to do with this?
Well, right now, G2's ship is sinking. So.
That is true. The Dragon spawns in 35 seconds. Let's see if G2 can plug some of the holes. Of course, right now, they're yet to hit an iceberg. But we're going to go back to base, spend some of that money.
How
They
far are you
picked
going
up
to
some
take that
control wards. I'm done now. That's it. That's all I got.
I thought you were going to have a... Jack could have fit on the door. Someone doesn't get taken in the Realm Warp. That's the reference, okay?
Yeah, got it. Broken Blade and Photon continuing trade. Remember that they don't have TPs, so Broken Blade going to be the first to make his way down. Photon forced to catch this wave, which means that G2 should have the numbers advantage. G2 also first on the mid wave. This means that Vitality will have to catch this, and G2 will have access to the river. You can see Perks down in the bot lane, hits level 11, and will also provide another avenue. He's cautious, though, of that bush. He's aware that he has no information there, and he's waiting for his team to move up. But Bo and Perks are being sneaky. They're trying to catch Caps off, but he is not falling for the trap. And now they create the pincer onto Yike.
So you have Arrow up, you have Chain of Corruption as well. Bo looking forward here, but that Dragon will be secured by Hansama. Yike actually didn't have Smite for 2 seconds, but the Petrifying Gaze is going to hit here onto Caps, and he's rooted in place. Cease and Desist coming out as well. And there's nowhere for Caps to go. Perks once again slays his former teammate 2-0-1 now. As Vitality, although they lost the Dragon, was still able to get something out of the fight. Also, Photon was able to push the top lane the entire time.
Overall, a pretty solid trade for Vitality, and Perks winning the mental warfare there against Caps. Like, such great awareness from him to recognize that someone might be in that brush. But the moment he sees Bo leave, he's like, oh, well now there's no one left in that brush. The culprit has been found, my instincts were right, but it turns out that there was in fact a snake lying in wait to trap Caps, and he ends up finding that kill. And as you already said, Photon secures that tower in the top lane. So that gold lead now extends to 3k. Of course, G2 do have a very clear win condition with the Dragons. Not the end of the world for them. You have to be concerned about the rate at which these Vitality solo laners are accelerating. 1k gold lead for Photon, 1k gold lead for Perks. They're just continuing to get stronger and stronger, and the scaling is only going to become more difficult as the game continues.
4 of the top 5. Not anymore, but 3 of the top 3 are Vitality players. Bo, Perks, and Photon farming up a Storm. 1,000 gold ahead between Bo and Yike. And although Yike has gone for the Demonic Embrace build, it can take a while for you to really be able to get into these fights. The Udyr really wants to be in the mix of things, and at the moment, Vitality doing a very good job of using their range and just holding Yike at arm's length when they need to. Bo finishes second item now, Radiant Virtue, so everyone gets ability haste and healing as they chase up behind him. G2 looking for their first Herald of the game. The Herald they lost earlier was the first one they've lost in the entirety of Winter. LEC Winter. And Bo once again steps forward. Any flank positions? No. Photon fighting down towards the bottom lane as Broken Blade takes a little bit of damage. Yike trying to keep this one aggro, but the patience will run out, and Rift Herald doesn't want to dance this dance no more. Mid lane is being pushed out by Hansama, though Vitality invested all their players in the river here to make sure they could secure this, but Yike continues to step forward, does have the smite this time. TP coming in, Yike caught, but the smite does go down. Yike will take his cease and desist on him, but he's going to be able to run away from this one. Petrifying Gaze as well, used down towards the bottom side. Yike has already gone down. Hansama able to chase away. Caps being chased by Bo. Kai's on his way to get in here as well. Caps does still have the Realm Warp, and he's going to try and use it because he knows Bo just used his knock-up, but Bo still able to get him down. Broken Blade in the bottom lane will take a 1v1 fight, the solo bolo for him.
It's pretty crazy that Vitality chose to completely abandon the Herald. It was in smite range for Bo. He just chose not to throw it out. Instead, his focus was on securing that kill onto Yike, and I believe that looking at the scoreboard below, G2 weren't even able to pick it up. So while they did steal it away, the only advantage that they walk away with is the fact that Broken Blade secures a tower, does get a solo kill onto Photon. but Vitality continue to accelerate their lead. They're in a great position. They're continuing to win these fights. You can see how difficult it is with G2's very short range. Things like the Casio, things like the Varus can be so difficult to approach. And we've had this conversation before. You're going to see it a lot in pro play, but your ability to approach your opposition and your ability to face check is very important. And right now, Broken Blade is being herded straight into the warm embrace of Perks.
It's not the first time we've seen a favorite coming in, being on the wrong side of a 7-1 scoreline, and right now Vitality looking to make it 8-1 as Broken Blade is chased out, and Photon will secure his first kill of the game. Neon was able to hold the mid-wave here, so no tower lost for Vitality, and G2 very much on the ropes. We wondered after the SK game how good they were at playing from behind, because SK put them at a deficit. They struggled in that game and ended up losing it here once again. 3,000 gold in the hole. They did manage to get those first 2 Drakes, but right now if I look down that scoreline, I see Perks 202, 2 items. I see Bo 303, 2 items. I see Photon almost at his second item with that Void Staff coming in. It's a very tricky situation for G2 to try and navigate.
I mean, I'll be honest, I think that Vitality had just such a great draft plan.
Yeah.
I love what they've brought out. The Vi for Bo, giving him a lot of agency, but also a lot of single target damage. And it synergizes with the Casio so well. We've seen it twice now. The grounding goes down into the ultimate from Vi. Basically just locks you in place. There's nowhere for you to go. And you get chain CC'd into death. And that combo is only going to get more lethal as the game continues. Now G2 is starting to open up the map a little bit, but Caps hasn't been able to find any successful roams in the early game. Let's see if Bo is in danger.
He went a little bit deep there, but with Perks coming across, Hansama realizes you can't really take any more of that trade. The Wingborn Storm, second activation there, doing a bit of chip damage on Bo, and that's why you take the Demonic. Look at how much health he has lost. Baron started here.
Whoa, okay. G2 trying to force Vitality's hand here. Good damage from Hansama. Will force Bo and Kaiser back. It looks like G2 were looking for a bit of something. But the Dragon is up, and I want to bring your attention to the minimap right now. Look at all this vision invested from Vitality. It is incredible, but maybe it doesn't matter because as long as G2 have push in the mid, they're going to gain access into the river. The thing to take care of is the TPs. Once again, good damage from Hansama, and he's the player we have to keep our eyes on. 2 items completed. He's the biggest threat. They're looking for Hans.
Arrow wants a Hans, but immediately he cleanses it. Photon trying to dive in here as well. Perks coming in from the side. Already Yike is down, and now Perks is in prime position to wail away on Hans. Twin Fangs after Twin Fangs find their mark. Broken Blade now standing tall. The Acquisition will connect with 2 kills over to Vitality and the Dragon to boot.
And I was saying that Hans is the player you need to watch, and Vitality said the same thing. The arrow came out immediately. The follow-up with the ghost from Perks meant that he was able to chase him down, and for anyone in the studio, you would have heard Vitality. The second they saw that window, they pounced on it immediately. 10-1 is the kill score. And there was a deal with Rahman. If you can kill Perks 6 times, you can have all your players on the analyst desk. Well, Perks isn't giving them a single one. The Baron is on the cards, and there is no jungler to steal this one away.
Yeah, no way you take this one. Bo will secure it. 10-1 now. Vitality are 5,000 gold in the lead. G2 trying to pick up scraps where they can, and scraps is all it is. A mid lane tower caps a level down, 11.5 down on Perks right now.
A clean game from Vitality overall, and again, watch Hansama here. The ultimate comes out onto him, locking him down. The cleanse is quick. He's dashing to safety, but on the right side of your screen, here comes Perks with the ghost. Yike is just chain CC'd, locked down. The grounding applies the slow. The ultimate from Photon as well, as we go back to live.
Photon trying to trade here on the top lane, puts the needle work down. Broken Blade though knocks him back, brings him back to the fight. And the shutdown goes over to Yike. Very difficult for Photon to escape in those sorts of situations.
So, big pick for G2. At the very least, they will remove 1 Baron, but by investing 4 members up towards the top side, you do leave this mid tower exposed. They've actually sent Neon down bot lane to catch this wave, so maybe this tower isn't as easy to take as I initially thought, but as I say that, Caps respecting the flank from Bo. God, I'm always impressed by Caps' awareness here. He's respecting the possible dive, will not fall prey to it, will concede that tower. And now Vitality move into the enemy jungle. And this, for me, is the most convincing game I have seen from Vitality. From draft plan to execution so far, this, in my opinion, has been one of the cleanest games that they've shown all split long. They looked promising in week 1. Oh, Mickey, you got to be careful there, bro. Bo, arrow, sidestep.
But the cease and desist can chase you forward. Miasma could come down as well, but Mickey's able to flash away. The tidal wave doing a lot of work. And the Cullen coming out as well. TP's behind. Double TP as Photon wants to join the fray alongside Broken Blade, who has to dash away. Realizes he doesn't really want to take any more of this action. Photon stepping forward with the needle work keeps G2 at bay.
Okay, both TPs were invested. G2, they're looking for a little bit more. really good flash and play overall for Mickey there. Kind of forced Vitality to overcommit. He used his ultimate the second that Bo decided to ulti onto him, which forced the front of Vitality to be separated from the back, which then isolated Bo, but he didn't even have to flash to get out of that situation. I thought that could have been a very dangerous fight for Vitality, but they end up walking away without losing too much. The Baron not resulting in a huge amount though, as you can see at the top of your screen. Only 300 additional gold gained, more or less.
And that's including the 1.5k you get for taking. So net, they actually lost about 1,300 gold across the last few minutes. Vitality, though, still stepping into the G2 jungle, trying to deny as much vision, as much of this farm as possible. However, Yike has been on a farming tear, 203. Now steps forward, the arrow comes out. Going to be able to walk away. And there's the second part of the Blazing Stampede. That means you can't be slowed, you can't be stopped. He's able to escape back to the safety of his team. Perks, though, now level 16. That Rod of Ages stacking up. Caps only at 14 at 10 minutes. Fully stacked Rod of Ages as well, is what I meant by 10 minutes there, but a couple of levels behind. Bit of a struggle for him, really, in this game. And Vitality able to play across 2 lanes here, pulling G2 here and there, meaning that they secure a tier 2 in the mid lane.
What a great game from Vitality, and I think this really does cement them as one of the top teams in Europe. Of course, they did fall short to SK, but both teams have faltered to the current kings of Europe. And yeah, big win. Reminder, the winner of this game will lock top 8.
Yep.
Because XL and Astralis are currently sitting at only 1 win. With only 3 games left to go, it is impossible for either of those teams to catch up to 5, which means that Vitality or G2 with 5 wins would naturally lock a spot in top 8, and it would secure you into the best of 3s that'll be happening the week after next.
Yeah. Still plenty to play for even after you've locked your spot. The top 1 and 2 get seeded into opposite groups. Obviously, if you're first, you have lower seeds lower down, and you get choice of who you play out of the bottom 2 seeds in your group. So you do want to be as high up in the standings as possible for both these teams, maybe to avoid the other being in their group, but also to avoid, you know, a team like SK, who currently has a really good read on the meta, could prove a challenger in a best of 3s.
But I also think that this has just been such a redemption for Perks. Not to say that he had a bad year individually, but for what he was trying to build alongside Vitality, for what he was trying to achieve in Europe, it's always been a challenge for him.
Yeah.
Oh, now in a bit of danger. He's going for the fight.
Bo going in, looking for the slow there. The chase continues. Arrow coming out, but it goes behind them. Photon joins the fray here as well. Yike and Broken Blade will be able to escape, get to the blast cone, get out.
Oh, so I think Broken Blade used his ultimate the same time Bo used his. And because they were both unstoppable, they both basically just, well, they went their separate ways. if I read that correctly.
That's too much maths for me.
Yeah.
I'm here to play, not to study, as Bo face checks in. Realm Warp coming out. Broken Blade able to get in there. Yike is not, though, and so Bo can continue with the chase here, but Yike not really the one you want to be chasing. The slow coming down from the Wingborn Storm means that Yike continues to harass and to harangue. Meanwhile, Perks is taking the dragon by himself. G2 didn't want to fight this. Second dragon of the game for Vitality.
So the Baron spawns in about 50 seconds, and it's really important that G2 maintain some essence of vision around it, because we talked about it earlier. Cassio, Gwen, these 2 champions are so fast at killing Baron, and they can kill it alone. Well, not completely alone. Ideally, their jungler is there with them, but it's something that is very scary this late into the game. 3 items fully completed for Perks. Stopwatch as well. He's just going to melt that Baron. As Bo looks for deeper vision, because now Vitality is looking to reclaim the vision that they lost from earlier.
I really like the Force of Nature build here on Bo as well. Magic damage from Yike and from Caps. Take reduced damage as you build up stacks. You build up a lot of stacks because Yike just has a slowing field on you. Alongside that, there's not actually that much physical damage. Hansama's only at 2 items right now. It doesn't even have the Infinity Edge complete. Broken Blade is pushing down the bottom lane here. His ultimate up in 4 seconds, does have the TP. Bo will secure the Rift Scuttler there. Broken Blade should be able to get this tier 2 if left unabated.
He's just starting it alone, bro.
I mean, that's what he does, right? Try and bring him out, try and draw him into the action.
From Broken Blade right now? I feel like that's the play.
The thing is, Yike can just step forward far enough that they know that this isn't actually really happening. Bo, about 2/3 HP right now. Hansama and Mickey should be able to clear out this vision, but Hansama does take a chunk from the arrow there. Bo looking for the cease and desist, can't quite get into range.
Bo is using Q off cooldown. He's just like,
got a lot of ability,
punch, can I punch?
He's Saitama. It's just like he just has a series of successively more serious punches.
Oh, that he does. He's looking to throw his punch into the face of G2 right now. 4K is the gold lead. That gold doesn't matter as much with Hans Summer now securing 3 items. This Lucian, even with the short range, if he can get on top of anyone, will be hitting hard. They start the Baron up once again. Cassio, though, not with them.
I actually think they hugged the wall close enough here that they weren't seen on the ward that's in the bush just below here, this ward from G2. Now, Cass will know because Kaiser stepped forward, but that Baron's going to fall very, very quickly. Now, Yike is going to try and get into the river here, but even with the tidal wave coming in, you're not really going to be able to get there in time. Yike can't get past Perks, and the Baron has already been taken. TP coming in from Broken Blade. Photon looking to go in as well. Hans Summer caught in the season assist, but it's only Photon and Bo who are there. Broken Blade actually brings him across the wall straight onto the face of Hans Summer, but Broken Blade tries to act as the wall. The needles, though, will pierce his skin and take him out. Sent to the morgue. Hans Summer will fall. Meanwhile, on the top side of the fight, Neon still trying to chase Mickey X down. Mickey has nowhere to go. Neon takes the second of the fight. Perks and Kaiser trying to escape from Caps, who's still full health. Well, pretty much full health and full mana. Yike now joining the fray. Perks flashes, so does Kaiser. The miasma will stop them. The realm warp coming in as Caps looks for the chase. Seraph shielding on him's not going to be enough, and now Bo joins the fray. No mana on him as well as Caps will keep him at bay. Yike with the Windborn Storm, not quite enough. It is in the end to take down Kaiser. That's the power of the fray orb for you. As Caps chase onto Perks once again. Bo coming in behind them. The damage from Neon is enough. The piercing arrow finds its mark. Only Yike able to survive.
And Vitality pick apart G2 in what is another dominant team fight. They walk away with the Baron, and G2 is left to pick up the pieces. Broken Blade brought the top side of the map to Hans Summer. He thought he was helping, he thought he was saving his AD carry, but he just made it even harder for him. Photon and Bo saw the opportunity, immediately pounced onto Hans, and with him gone, Caps did what he could, but it wasn't enough. Perks elegantly dancing around in the fight, using the small amount of health regeneration that he gets to just keep himself alive at the very edge of the fight. But beautiful mechanics demonstrated by him. 0 deaths across the board for Vitality. Arrow throw now, not going to result in much. But now they're setting up a 1-4. As I say that, actually, they're going to send Photon to go and catch top. He still has the TP available, something that Vitality could potentially look to take advantage of.
It's the power of an item like Rod of Ages in these fights. Mana that you spend, you get healing back. Damage that you take, you get mana back. And obviously, the Seraph's helping you out with that as well, as Vitality are able to push in this bottom lane. Double cannons here for them. Yike tries to tank them up, try and clear them out a little bit, but they don't really have the range to get onto those cannons. Cullen coming out from Hans Summer, dodges the Chain of Corruption very aptly, sidesteps it. The arrow going through the goalpost there as well. 3 points to Kaiser, but unfortunately we're not playing rugby today. Instead, League of Legends on the menu, and an arrow not connecting is not the best of shapes for you. However, the push still continues for Vitality. They've shifted Photon into the mid lane. Broken Blade still down here on the bottom side. No wave though for Photon. Tidal wave has been used as they go into Perks and Kaiser, and immediately they locked him down. Cease and desist going on to Hans Summer. Perks wants the stopwatch. Kaiser's already fallen. Perks next on the menu. Hans Summer able to take him. He will fall in response. Bo now in the midst of 2. Neon fighting off towards the backside. Caps gets on him with the spell Flux, and now Caps just trying to clean up these kills in the end. Decides he doesn't really want a piece of that action. Level 18 Photon a bit too strong for Caps and Mickey.
Wow, an actual one team fight here for G2, but Photon wants to try and win it for Vitality. Good spacing there from Caps, has the support from Mickey as well. And props to G2, they're able to hold the line. Let's have a look back at exactly how this one plays out, because remember that the ultimate comes in from Mickey, and it kind of locks down Perks in an awkward position. You can see the 3 characters all stuck together like here. Yike throws out the ultimate, does a huge amount of damage, forcing Perks to stopwatch. He's done basically 0 damage at this point in time, while they are able to lock down Hans Summer. And credit to Perks for doing that. Photon is trying to tear apart the backline, but Caps is just kiting him around. Meanwhile, while Neon does get that kill, Caps then comes in for the cleanup. Broken Blade is able to get a kill onto Bo, and then it's just a dance between Photon and Caps, where Photon just can't keep up with the movement speed of Rise.
And Caps just short of his Void Staff now. Picked up a couple of shutdowns in that last fight. Level 17 as well. Photon and Perks have been sitting at 18 for quite a while. Neon up towards 16. That 3rd ultimate will help them out a little bit in the fight. 3rd Dragon of the game for Vitality. The 5th of the game in totality here, as Vitality will be 1 away. Now on Soul Point for the Hex Soul. Obviously the ability haste helping them out quite a lot in fights. We've seen Bo dancing around with the Muhammad Ali impression. Punch after punch after punch, but in that last fight didn't help them out too much. Stopwatch also finished on Hans Summer, so a little bit sneakier.
Has been spotted. Caps with the collapse as well. There's no objective for Vitality to really cross-map with.
Got the Ghost. He will use it. Need will work as well for the slow on Caps, and just to summon up out of Photon.
Problem for Photon is you really want to have that available for a fight. Baron spawning in about a minute and a half. Let me do a quick check on the cooldown there for Photon. It is sitting on about a 3-minute cooldown, give or take. So, it won't be available the next time that Baron is up. See if he's able to get onto the carries. 4th item completed though. And it's getting tense. G2, even though they're 6k gold down, I feel like that they're still putting up a strong fight. A lot of the credit needs to be given over towards Hansama and Caps. Hansama is the main focus in these fights. Vitality doing a good job of locking him down, but this then gives space for Caps to move around the fight, get into a good position, and then Broken Blade to just create chaos with the Cassante. And Vitality, you can see they're a little bit more hesitant. They were confidently controlling the map earlier, but G2, they've reclaimed a bit of space, especially on the bot side.
Kaiser does always have the threat of an arrow. He's going to use it. He hits Broken Blade. Bo on his way. Neon chasing in as well, as so is Perks. Caps trying to get away. The Realm Warp step back, but the Cease and Desist will stop him. And that means neither Caps nor Broken Blade will live to survive much longer. Fades rush on Caps. Flash as well, but Bo flashes for the chase. And the slow and the damage is enough. Bo takes him out. 2 kills. Over to Vitality. G2 immediately try and react and try and take down this mid lane tower, but there's TP available for Photon. And there's an open inhibitor down towards the bottom side. Photon TPing behind them, trying to cut them off. How do you get out of this one, G2? If you can get to the Hex Gate, maybe you can get out, but I don't think Photon, well, maybe it's okay. He'll let you get away for now.
He's gonna let them get away. Perks, though, continues to look. He has the pot. He's popped the Ghost. If he can spot out Yike, he's just gonna lie
though, isn't
wait.
it?
He wasn't spotted out, and that's exactly it. That's why they weren't going for the cross map. They knew that Baron was spawning soon. They wanted to get as many kills as they could, or at the very least force G2 back. G2, I think that the idea is promising. You have Caps, Shadow, Broken Blade in a side lane, and you use that to try and find a pick. However, Vitality attacked that side of the map, because in the same vein, while it looked like there was nothing for Vitality to cross map, while G2 was going for that play, the same was true for G2. While they did look for that tier 2 in the mid lane, they couldn't really punish the collapse that Vitality was making on the bot, because they were able to collapse back up towards the top side and then secure themselves the Baron.
You stop ports. They go for Kaiser, the Cullen coming out as well. Petrifying Gaze already used, the Tidal Wave being used. The Cease and Desist onto the backline. Mick is already down, but Hansama somehow still alive on the backline. But Caps just stepped into the middle of them all and was immediately deleted. Broken Blade now stepping. 1v5. Cassante can do a lot, but he can't do this. Yike pays for it with his life. Vitality find 3, and you have to feel that's the death knell for G2.
G2 tried to force the fight as Vitality is looking to reset. They haven't had that opportunity to spend that Baron gold, so they wanted to try and catch them off guard, but Vitality was ready. This top jungle duo just tore through the backline with Perks freely dishing out the damage. Vitality are looking dominant, and they're looking to secure the top spot in the LEC.
And lock themselves a spot in the group stage. Miasma forward with the flash there. Hansama able to dodge to the side of it, cleanses away from the arrow as well. Somehow you got to cull this wave, you got to clear it out. Broken Blade trying to do what he can. Mickey now up, Photon stepping in, but the Nexus Tower is the target for Vitality. Already they have fallen, Hansama goes golden. But I don't think he's going to survive much longer. Broken Blade able to kill off Bo, something no one really has done this game, but Vitality will take the Nexus, and they will take their spot in the best of 3s.
The smiles on the faces of Perks. This is what he was hoping this Vitality could one day be. Securing a spot at the top of the LEC after week 2. You will be seeing this Vitality squad in the best of 3. And an incredibly dominant performance. I said it during the cast, I'll say it again. I believe this was Vitality's most convincing game of the split. Yep. In the first week, we saw them get big wins, but there were shaky moments. It felt like that they had to individually claw their way back in. But this game, it felt like clean team play, a well-executed plan. Overall, just great performances, and Bo continuing to do what he's done all split long, find gank after gank, and just set his team up for success. An incredible game overall from this Vitality squad, as G2 find themselves with a 1-2 week.
Yeah, struggle of a week for G2 after being so dominant in week 1. Of course, still many games for them to play, assuming they can pick up one more win and make it into the group stage. They have a long road ahead of them. A great performance from Vitality, as you say. Felt the cleanest. They solidified any issues they may have had in the bot lane in the early game, which I think was a worry for many people. And even though that bot lane started to swing in favor of G2, the rest of the map very much opened up for Vitality.
Yeah, we didn't talk much about the bot lane during the game, and admittedly, like, you saw the scoreline, you saw their positioning, like, Neon only died once throughout the entire game. And he was contributing a lot of damage. He was doing a lot of
exactly what
work.
he
Like,
needed
his
to do.
positioning was good. It was just that when you kind of saw how the fights played out, it was so much about Bo and Photon basically just running straight at their opposition and trying to create as much chaos in the backline that we weren't paying attention to Vitality's backline because it felt like they were never really in any danger.
And they definitely weren't. Like, they did exactly what they had to do. The arrows as well from Kaiser were on point, constantly finding their mark. And overall, G2 Vitality just played an incredible game. You play of the game at LEC on Twitter. Bo, Perks, and Neon are your options. I think Neon, as we said, had a much stronger early game, but perhaps not the person that I would nominate as my player.
Well, I mean, it's a tough one because I think that at every point they all had an incredible performance. I think that it's fair to say that, like, for me, it's hard not to give it to Bo because of his great impact. You could also argue Perks. I think that, again, Neon in the team fights was very impactful. And I imagine there were things that we missed from Neon in the fights
always.
because when you look at these things, a lot of my focus was being drawn to how Vitality were actually setting up the engages. And a lot of that came from their top jungle. So overall, great game from Vitality. I hope we can continue to see this level of play from them next week. Whereas G2, even though they're not in a bad spot in the standings, they're going to need a big bounce back to reassert themselves as the top dog in Europe.
I very much agree with you, Veddy. We'll hear more about that win from Vitality's Perks, who's standing by with trouble.
Thank you so much, Medic and Pax. Congratulations and thank you so much for joining me. I mean, that was a stompy game and you guys have been talking about the whole of rebuilding. You also gave an interview on M-Dash, so you can give us a little bit of the background of the whole rebuild situation since you are the one standing member from the Vitality of last year.
I mean, last year was kind of a disaster, so we just thought it's time for our first start, like just flip the switch and flip the board and just do everything different. And we had a lot of time to actually prepare, like to think about the roster, think about how we want to approach the year. And yeah, I think it's going well now, yeah.
Is that what you imagined when the whole rebuilding situation, when you were sitting on top of the puzzle and you were putting the pieces together?
Not really, not like this, no.
When it comes to the communication, because we've chatted with, you know, Kaiser and Neon as well, and they say we're still keeping it very simple, the go button, the stop button, calling the champions. If this is the Vitality that we see when the communication is not on 100% due to, of course, non-native English speakers, what can we expect on Full Throttle?
I mean, honestly, I think we are like not a really good team right now. Like we make so many mistakes that like this game should have been over in 25 minutes, but we made like Photon died, then after we got Baron instead of vasing, then we got caught in enemy jungle, and then the whole Baron was wasted, so basically the game lasts like 7 minutes longer than it should have, which is fine, right? But I think there is a lot of positive lights, you know, like making plays and like trying to play together, but like basically what I'm trying to say is I think we have a big ceiling for this team for sure, because our macro is really bad. Our communication is not great. So, but the good thing is those are the things that are very easily fixable. Like the problem is if you can't play champions, if you have bad mechanics, if you have like these issues, you can't fix that, you know? You can't just suddenly start playing every champion in the game, or you can't just suddenly like be really good at like every champ and just play it, or like be good at laning. I think we are good at laning. I think we are good at like micro, and we're good at like team fighting and all of that. So that's a nice relief because we don't have to like, how do you say, how do you work on it? How do you work if you're just bad? Like you can't just work if you're bad, so.
Well, you're certainly not bad.
Yeah, so we have like a lot of issues that we can work on, which is like good, right?
All right, I only have one small question for you, but it's a spicy one. And since you talked about very high skill ceiling, I'm going to ask you, in your career, in every team you've been in, which team do you think has had or has the highest skill ceiling?
The highest skill ceiling? Well, I think this roster is like really, really good. It's too early to say who has the highest skill ceiling. You know, it's easy for me to say with the teams I've won in the past, like Season 7 or Season 9. Oh, these teams are really, really insane, right? But right now we just have to wait and see how we develop. I definitely think like Bo and me can be like the best mid jungle in the world. And I think mid and jungle is like the most OP role. And as Wunder is like applauding as well, so thank you very much. So yeah, as long as I think mid jungle is OP right now, and as long as mid jungle is OP, I think we will be like really, really strong.
All right, what I'm going to keep from that is mid jungle is OP, so next time I get ganked and my Graves doesn't show up, I know who to blame. Thank you very much, Perks, and congratulations on the win as well. We're going to toss it over to the desk. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Trouble, and congratulations, Kaiser, on being the first team locking in group stage here.
Thank you, thank you.
That was an amazing game from you guys. And Trouble was talking about this, a really stompy game also. I didn't expect maybe such a one-sided match between you and G2. Would you agree?
I mean, in game it felt kind of closer, I would say, because I think their comp was quite good into at least our bot lane champions. Like, for example, the Udyr just like blocking my arrows, or like Cassante being unstoppable, you know? Like, it felt kind of hard to play for me. Of course, I missed some arrows as well, right? But I think the Cassio, for example, I think that was an insane pick by Perks. They just had no reach for him. They could never like get to him, and he just dealt so much damage. So yeah, it was a good comp for our part for sure as well.
Yeah, I definitely think just from the draft as well, you see it from pick order, like Rise, you take it fine. But I actually think it was a really clever option for you guys to just straight go for the Varus and Ashe. We saw it already yesterday as well, and that was into the Lucian Nami. Did you guys feel confident with this bot lane going into the Lucian Nami in the bot lane?
For sure, like we practice this in scrims a lot, and I actually really wanted to play Ashe on stage because I think this champion is really unbalanced, you know. I think for like especially against G2, because G2 is a team that really heavily plays around bot lane, and they really need bot prior kind of. So we kind of wanted to shut that down with like a really strong bot lane, and I think like Ashe right now on this patch is like the strongest laner by far.
Right.
Especially if you take away like Draven, Kalista, you know, like we did, they didn't really have a strong ADC left, so they were kind of forced into Lucian Nami, which is also like a decently strong lane, but like not in the early levels where Varus and Ashe really shine. So I think we drafted really well against especially G2, and I think that showed in game.
Yeah, I definitely think they came out with a better draft as well, just due to the fact that a lot of G2's is solo range with all of the champions coming through. I actually think G2 on the 4 and 5 pick made it a bit more difficult for themselves because they picked that into the Casio. And I think that Casio pick really was just like the one solidifying it.
I thought you were going to say something. You guys are getting the mic ready, taking agency on the desk. But yeah, confirming some stuff about the draft here. I want to talk about the VIT pick especially and Bo's impact in the early stages of the game.
I mean, Bo really likes carry and engage champions, right? Like he kind of finds these opportunities that like no one else finds, kind of in a way. And he's of course mechanically really good. Maybe he can't show that well on Vi, right? It's like mostly point and click, but I think he's really good on the champion. And of course, when his like Graves ban, Graves gets banned, he has to kind of pivot to something else. And the Vi just fits naturally into our comp. We have a lot of engage, we have a lot of backline as well, right? And yeah, he just played it really well as well, like shutting down multiple Ryze ults and just making their life hell.
And I also just think like he finds these windows where the enemy team is not expected to get ganked right now. The Drake fight in the beginning where G2's bot lane is stacking up away, they're pushing it in, just blast comes over, just immediately find and engage. It seems so easy to play when Bo is on your team. And you know, you've probably been one of the supports who's played with the best junglers. You played with Yoya, you played with Bo as well. How do you rank Bo compared to Yoya?
Oof.
I mean, I think they're a bit different in playstyle. I think, for example, Elioya is really like smart about the game. Like he talks a lot, you know, in game he makes plans, and of course he's also good mechanically, right? But I think Bo for sure is better mechanically. Like I think Bo is the best mechanical jungler I've ever played with, you know, and ever seen, not even ever seen, but like on the European server, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think there are some differences. Of course, like Bo is really smart as well, but his English is also improving, but he can't like say what he wants to say sometimes, right? And sometimes there's some miscommunication still, and we have to work on that. But I think once we fix those issues, I think like he's going to be the best jungler by far.
And I think it echoes to what Perks was saying before during the interview, saying that you guys, strong words maybe, but you guys are not a very good team right now. And we were talking about Vitality on the desk, especially coming to the communication within players and how insane you guys are going to be once you figure this out. Do you agree on what Perks was saying, the fact that there's a lot of areas to improve in-game specifically? I'm not talking about just communication here. What would you see as things that can get better for the group stage?
I mean, just planning in general, I would say. Like, we did practice that in scrims, and I think sometimes it went well. I think sometimes we just mis-execute as well. I think we just have to focus on learning the champions we are playing. For example, I think I messed up sometimes, you know, I picked champions that I wasn't really confident on, right? So I just have to like shift my priorities in solo queue to just like practice champions that we actually want to play, you know, and we want to like, just draft the champions that we want to play and that we are comfortable on. And in general, I think we're doing fine, mostly like a mid-late game. I think our Baron calls are like really good. Like how we play around Baron. I think that's actually like a really hard part about just playing out mid-late game, right? I think many teams fail there.
We've seen that a lot, yeah.
For sure. So I think our objectives are actually fine. But I think for sure the early game and just maybe a bit of team fighting as well. Like sometimes we focus different targets. We just run off into our own world, and I think we have to just fix those issues and then we are going to be good.
Yeah, and I think the team fighting specifically as well. Like you say, like sometimes it's difficult, but I feel like in today's team fight as well, it seems kind of fluent for you guys still, especially some of the later team fights as well with the dragging, where you still get really good arrows here, you force it out cleanse, and you still have finding really key moments. Like it's split in the beginning, but it kind of connects with each other. And I feel like while the perfect setup was not perfect initially, you guys kind of find each other despite all of it. How much do you think comes down to like, well, you're actually good then you find these things? And how much of it comes down to, well, we have raw skill and we're just intelligent players that know how this is going to play out?
I mean, it's some of it comes down to like the champions we picked. Like for example, Ashe versus Cassio. We have like backline, right? It's really simple. And we have a Vi who jumps on top of the first target, like she hits, right? And then we just like all pile on them. So I think the comp kind of made it easy for us to like play team fights, because we just knew as long as we cut it back and as long as we maybe like just kill the first target, right, we always would win. So I think that kind of made it easy for us. But I think of course like we are all good players, I would say, and we kind of know how to pilot our champion around team fights. And I think. Of course, like Bo screaming, go this guy, go this guy, go this guy, also like helps with that, we are really vocal players. But I think in general we are doing fine.
Amazing.
Really always funny hearing about Vitality's comms, and I hope we keep on hearing them later in LEC. But Kaiser, thank you so much for joining us today. Congrats again on looking in group stage. Looking forward to seeing what you guys have cooked for us next week. And that's all for us here on this side of the studio. We'll just be back in a couple minutes, 3 minutes, I think, for the final game of the week, Team Heretics versus Fnatic. Stay tuned.